Now going on. All right, Jeff is just entered good. So he always has good questions. So welcome everybody to the Rabbi Interviews. It's a pleasure today to interview a wonderful woman who has just moved to our community. Her name is Asia Pitts. I don't know if many of you have met her yet. Again, she just moved here maybe a month ago or so. And she is going to be running an organization that has just been founded here called SAGEM, Savannah Area Justice Ministries. And she is going to be our lead organizer, the first one in the history of our city for this position. So we're very thrilled to have her. I've had the pleasure of spending a little time with her, but we're very happy to have her here as we interview a little bit about her, but also a little bit about the organization she came here to run. So just a little bit of a background. She is from Spartanburg and she has 3 brothers, and she recently just graduated from College of Charleston with a degree in public health with international studies. I hope I said that correctly. She loves nature, hiking, and playing with her dog, which I mentioned is, very Savannian. We love our dogs here. So we're very thrilled to have her. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Asia Pitts. I'm going to ask questions. We may have people coming in. And again, this goes to our YouTube site, so it's a good way to promote the organization which we are a part of. So to begin, could you just give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you went to high school, and what you did before going to college, and then what you did at college?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina. A lot of people don't generally know what that is, but it's in the upstate part of South Carolina near Greenville. Um, and I have lived there my whole life. My family's from there. I went to high school at a school called Dorman High School. It was a big sports school, and we had about 800 students in my graduated class. So they also called it Dorman University because of the size of it. But I also took classes as a part of this entity called the Scholars Academy. So in 9th grade, I started taking college courses at USC Upstate. And so that's what I spent a lot of high school doing, being at Upstate, taking those dual enrollment courses. And then I ended up at College of Charleston within the Honors College. I started out thinking I wanted to do biology and be a pediatrician to help others. But I ended up switching to public health because of the community focus and also a degree in international studies. And that during my time in college, I started working with this organization called the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, which is also known as CAJM. And it was something that I had never seen before. It was a bunch of faith-based congregations of different races, socioeconomic statuses, religious beliefs coming together to do justice within Charleston. And so I got involved with that for the last 2 years of college, and that's sort of how I found out about the start of this organization.
And then we'll ask you a little bit about this, but I think you and I are thinking about the same question right now. As a person who lives in Georgia with 2 kids, does College of Charleston charge me in-state tuition if I send my kids there? And do we still have access to any of the scholarships and grants? So that's, I think, what everybody was thinking about right now. So is it a good school?
It is a good school. Sometimes there were some issues, but we recently got a new president, and we're in a super intense strategic planning phase that included a lot of student voices. So it's turning around in the right direction in terms of racial relations on campus and things like that.
And so were you very active? I know you're active in DART, which we'll explain the difference between DART and SAGEM and so forth, but were you active in other on-campus programs?
Yeah, I was a part of a lot of things through the Honors College. So we had a Scholar Citizen Initiative, which was this idea of engaging beyond the classroom within the Charleston community. And so we held leadership summits to talk about issues within the community, but also introduced people to different organizations within the community to do work with and to partner with. I was a part of a worshiping community on campus called Journey. And we did a lot of outreach things within the community as well, but it was also just an on-campus ministry that I was a part of. I interned at some different places, different nonprofits within Charleston, like the London Foundation and things like that. And I interned within the Honors College in the Office of Admissions and worked heavily with them on, especially my last year, on working to change up the way that they did enrollment, because there were a lot of biases that we noticed within it, such as using test scores and things like that, that didn't include a lot of people of color, or didn't take into account holistic approaches to enrollment. And so a lot of things of that nature was what I was involved in during my time at College of Charleston.
That's pretty, I think many of us were not as involved in social justice organizations when we were in college. I think we've talked about that. So that, and no doubt you did a lot. That's why I asked the question. And so sounds like you had a good experience at college, that you were there to not only learn yourself, but also to help improve the city and the college itself. And I know they even have a, from a Jewish perspective, they have a very nice Jewish department with a wide range of studies, from Hebrew to history to theology and philosophy. So I know they do a great job there. And so you came to College of Charleston from Spartanburg. Had you ever really been in the big city before? I don't know how the size of Spartanburg is.
Yeah, Spartanburg is not super huge, and it's very different from Charleston in a lot of aspects. And a lot of the other colleges that I had applied for were, they were in college towns. So definitely not like College of Charleston, where you're immersed in the middle of downtown. And so it was an adjustment. I had been to Charleston for vacations, but not really, downtown. I had been to downtown to the touristy parts, but not really just to explore. A lot of the times I'd gone to the beaches and things down there. So it definitely took some getting used to, because it was bigger. And also, I think I've told you this, I'm directionally challenged. So figuring that out. And then once you figure out how to walk around the city, you have to figure out how to drive around the city because of one-way streets and things like that.
And my motto is basically, you can't get lost if you're not going anywhere. So if you have no destination, you can't get lost. So I never get lost. And so not everybody, can be privileged enough to be born in a major metropolitan area like myself. I was born in McAllen, Texas, which of course you've probably heard, it's world famous. And so for those of you born in smaller areas, so I didn't know Spartanburg was in South Carolina. I know there's another one somewhere else, like in Alaska, I think. And so that was a joke. It's in Michigan. So
I was about to say.
so that I only know because it's they have a football team. It's either Michigan or Michigan State. Does anybody know? Arlene, Jeff, is it Michigan or Michigan State in Spartanburg? But anyway, so you then started volunteering with this organization called DART. So before we get into the local organizations, can you let us know a little bit about what DART is?
Yeah, so DART stands for Direct Action Research and Training Center. And it was founded in the 1980s, I believe. And what they do is basically they train and recruit community organizers, and they have different local organizations that are affiliated with them. And so they're tasked with hiring and training them, and they show the process to building justice ministries within congregations and doing the social justice work.
And can you explain exactly how it works? Because social justice is such a broad statement. What does it mean? What do they do in terms of to improve the city or the areas?
Yeah, so the process, it's a very grassroots bottom up approach instead of a top down, I'm going to tell you what you need um to try to solve your problems approach, and it's very people focused. And so they have an annual process that has three components. It starts with the listening process, and the listening process is the basis of the work. It's where the relationships are built. It's where stories are told of injustice within communities, and those conversations are also how issues are decided on for the year. So people, those stories uncover issues and injustice within the communities that these organizations are in. And then the people that were a part of those conversations, people that are part of the organizations, then vote on which issues to focus on for the year. And then you enter into a research to action phase, where you start researching that particular issue, and formulating a specific ask of different officials within the city. So you look at those issues and say, okay, what is something that we can ask for from the mayor or from the school board with this particular issue? And then you act on it. So we have these big Nehemiah action assemblies, and that's where we culminate all the work from the year. So we bring those officials in front of a great assembly of people, and we hold them accountable and ask for, what we want with a specific issue. And in front of all of those people, especially if they're your constituents and you're about to get voted for or something like that, it's hard to say no, because there's a lot of people power and pressure that we've built throughout the year to get to that action process. And then we go into the investment drive phase. And that's important because we really want this work to be owned by the people, and not by large corporations that can sway what's happening.
Excellent. And so what are some examples? Now, this is a national organization. So again, they've been doing it in many cities. I don't know, maybe 30 or something before us, 20, I'm not sure the numbers. So what are some action items they have done in other places that have succeeded?
Yeah, so in Charleston, they just got an affordable housing referendum put on the November ballot. Charleston has also gotten a racial bias audit done through an organization that they chose for the Charleston Police Department. They're still working on getting that done for North Charleston as well, to increase transparency with the people and with the police department and call out some of those racial biases. In Charleston, they've also done some work with livable wages and with education and doing restorative justice practices within schools and getting those implemented.
And so one of the great things about this organization is how they bring people together. Can you speak a bit about how they do that?
The process by which they do that?
Yeah, but I mean, for those of us who don't know what this is yet, where do they get the people?
Yeah, so they get them. Yeah, they get them from congregations. And so what happens is people reach out to different clergy people within the cities that these organizations are in, and talk about the biblical basis for doing justice. So looking at Micah 6:8, which says, "He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." And so the idea is to talk about this with clergy people. And when you look at the 3 requirements that are listed in this scripture, we do good in walking humbly with God, or coming to these faithfulness ministries, coming to worship services once a week, or coming to choir practice or things like that. And when you look at the mercy ministries or the kindness ministries, where you're feeding those that are hungry or giving shelter to the homeless, we do well in those as well, because we're helping individuals in need. But biblically, justice was holding the king, nobles of the day, people like Pharaoh accountable for the fair treatment of all people, especially those that were the widowed, the orphaned, and the poor. And when we translate that to today, it means holding the mayor accountable, school boards accountable, city officials accountable for the fair treatment. And the reason that we don't do the justice requirement well, is because we can't do it alone. So as individuals or as individual congregations, we can't attack these big, powerful systems and hold them accountable. And so the basis of this work is to engage different clergy on this basis, this biblical basis or scriptural requirement to do justice. And they work together in that effort because we need to build that people power in order to hold those systems accountable.
So it's kind of cool because the idea is at the end, you've got 3,000 people in a room. Obviously, it may not be in a room at this point. It may be virtually. So we'll see if it has the same type of impact. But you'll have 3,000 people in a room, 4,000, 2,000, all saying, Mayor, this is what you need to do. And I think it's a really incredible idea. And it takes a lot of effort. Now, as for you personally, you weren't anticipating applying for this type of position out of college, but what happened to give you that option?
You said what happened to give me?
Yeah, like you were not planning to go right into a lead advocate or lead
Okay.
organizing role coming right out of college. Obviously, comparatively, you're young. I mean, basically, we're about the same age, so you're very young. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think I'm a year or two older. But actually, you may be a year or two older. I'm
I
not
think
sure.
I'm older.
Okay, okay. So, what happened to change your mind and send you in this direction?
Yeah, so I originally applied and I didn't know that there was a startup happening in Savannah. So when you apply online, they say these are the positions that are open. And I originally just thought I was applying for an associate organizer, which is the starting organizer. It's like the step before lead organizer in Charleston because I had, done work with them and I knew the staff there pretty well. And I knew that one of their organizers, their contract was about to be up and they were moving on to a different job. And so I thought that that's what I was applying for. I think I thought that that's what I was applying for all the way up until March when I got a call and said, there's a startup happening in Savannah. And we really think that you can do it and we'd like for you to interview. Um, and I remember being in shock because that's a huge step up, like skipped a lot of steps. But I think what made me choose it was just that I was leaving college, and it was a new opportunity. It was out of my comfort zone, and I think that it was a perfect time for that. And to also see that you guys were moving forward with the start of this in the midst of a pandemic was also amazing to me. And then when I interviewed with everyone, everyone seemed excited about this startup happening. They seemed ready to continue, and I think that that's what pushed me to really accept the offer as well.
And yeah, it's really interesting because it's a year and a half process just to get ready to start. And so in the meeting, when we came together and we were not sure if we were going to continue, and a lot of us felt like people are going to say, let's take a step back. We've got a pandemic. We've got, all these issues with protests. We've got all these other issues going on. The economy was terrible. Surprisingly, of course, it's gone up in some ways, but still unemployment is a rate that's at the time the market had fallen. And we got into this room with these people and there was, 30 or 40 people. I think actually the first meeting, everybody said, this is the time. We don't only want to go forward, we want to go forward faster because this is the time for us to need it. So it may cost money, whatever, we're going to do it. And so it was just as you said, everybody went almost to a T the same place. Let's go for it. And that was pretty cool, I thought.
Absolutely. I think it was just shocking to me. I was like, "Oh, they're starting up now," and they chose a startup now, in light of everything that's happening. Because I think that I got the call about Sagem as an organization that was starting up. I think it was March 15th, so right before everything started shutting down. And then I think I had my interview in April. So to see that you guys were still continuing with everything was big.
Well, it wasn't that, again, for some people, they didn't realize what was happening, but we're a bunch of pastors, so we all knew what was going to happen in the future. So
Absolutely.
since we were so far ahead in understanding the pandemic and all the other issues, so it was not a big deal to us. So hopefully, now that you've moved to Savannah, first of all, what do you like to do for fun? We mentioned a little bit, but what are you doing? You've just moved to Savannah for a month. What are you enjoying here?
Yeah, I really like going out in nature. I've been to a lot of the parks around here for the first like 3.5, 4 weeks I was here. I was staying at the parsonage owned by First Presbyterian in Midtown. So like walking around and going to like Ardsley Park and places out there. And then now I live closer to Pooler, so like Tom Triplett Park, like going out in nature. And I have my puppy here now, and so doing things with him is a stress reliever. So that's fun. But anything out in nature. I haven't been out to the beach yet. Every time that I plan to go, it's poured down raining. So
It's the luck of the draw. So does anybody who's on the call on Zoom instead of YouTube want to ask any questions before we go on? If not, we will continue. All right, so you're in Savannah now.
mhm.
So what is your job now to do to get this thing rolling to the next level?
Yeah, so right now we are full speed ahead. We're trying to start up, like I said, those three processes. We're trying to start the listening process. And so we're working towards having what we're calling sacred conversations, or these meetings where we uncover the stories of injustice that people face, but also to build relationships within congregations. So now I'm meeting with a lot of the clergy that have been involved, strategizing for their specific congregations, creating congregational goals so that we can have big turnouts at that big Nehemiah Action Assembly in May, whatever that may look like, whatever that turnout may look like. Um, and meeting with leaders within congregations that are interested in being a part of the justice ministry so that we can get them committed to come into the sacred conversations training, but also get them to commit to leading those sacred conversations within their congregations.
And in Savannah now, or sorry, Savannah area, because we have houses of worship outside the city limits as well. How many have already signed on? How many houses of worship are we looking at here for our area?
Yeah, so there's about 25 that are signed on, that I'm working to meet with. Um, and there's some that are interested, but they want to see how the process works. But there's about 25 that are surely signed on and that we're moving forward in this process with.
And I know there's a good 10 to 15 more who are pretty much signed on. They just haven't started sending in the money yet, especially understanding the situation. So yeah, we've been meeting for about a year and a half, and there's probably now 60 or 70 pastors, priests, imams, preachers, rabbis, although I knew other rabbis that I've met through this process. And so once you come aboard, what happens to all the clergy in the process? Do they stay involved? Does it?
Yeah, so we love for the clergy to stay involved. But we also want it to be, very people driven. So in the beginning, clergy will be a little bit more hands-on with the whole process. Um, but the idea is to create these justice ministries within congregations that are just as important as the mercy ministries within congregations, or the faithfulness ministries within congregations. And so what will happen now is we'll work to build these justice ministries. So teams of leaders within congregations that are passionate about this work, that are excited about doing justice, that will help run that whole process. They remain in contact with clergy. I'll remain in contact with clergy as well, because it's important that you guys know what's happening, and are involved as well. I think
Yeah,
it helps for congregations to see that their clergy are involved still, and it helps. I think other clergy get involved when they see the clergy involved as much as the lay leaders within the congregations.
and I know we already have, I think, 15 to 20 already who are interested, hoping to get double that in the next couple of weeks. And so what happens? You're going to be doing a lot of meetings. So what are you doing in terms of meeting, and how are you doing all that, especially in the virtual world?
Yeah, so some of the meetings happen in person, socially distanced, with masks on. I've had meetings outside in some of the parks downtown. Oh, my office is in First Baptist, which is downtown, um, and close to you guys. Um, I've had meetings via Zoom. It's just whatever people are comfortable with, in the grand scheme of things. And some of the meetings will be like one to one, but what we're working towards now is having meetings with teams of people who are interested within congregations. That way we can invite them to that training that's happening for the sacred conversations and get them to lead those, as we enter into this listening process. So some of them are group meetings, some of them are individual meetings, and those will progress as time goes on.
And just a note, Jeff has sent in that MSU, which is Michigan State University, is in Spartanburg, and University of Michigan is in Ann Arbor, which I think I knew already, but thank you for confirming that. Excellent. And I know you were wondering about that as well.
Absolutely.
So now that you're here, now a lot of people come up to me and saying, this is a great organization. I have some ideas on what we should do, this and this and this. But how does it actually work? How do we decide what we're going to do?
In terms of the issue work or just
Exactly. How do we decide the issues were exactly? What is the exact process for choosing issues?
yeah, so like it starts with that listening process. So we have these sacred conversations and ask things.
Where are the sacred conversations? What does that mean? Sacred
Yeah, so
conversations
sacred
are
conversations are these meetings that happen. They're about 90 minutes, and the goal of these conversations is to build relationship, but to also uncover stories of injustice within congregations, members of congregations. And it's also a way to invite people to be network members within the justice ministry that you're building within your congregation. And so it's just this meeting. It could be in person, socially distanced, or via Zoom, whichever is most comfortable for the person facilitating at the time. But you basically do relationship builders, but also you ask questions such as when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, what keeps you up at night? Um, to share personal stories with one another, and to see what's happening. And then what happens is we'll compile all of the notes. So these sacred conversations will be happening in the different congregations that are involved. And we'll compile all of the notes from these sacred conversations. And out of those, we'll see which 4 issue areas are the ones that we're hearing the most about. And then we'll have a covenant assembly in December. And that's where people who are involved in these conversations, people who are team leaders within their justice ministry networks, people who are network members within their justice ministry networks, they'll come together and vote on which 2 issues we focus on for this year. And this cycle repeats every year. Um, and so if we start seeing the same issues, we know that we need to formulate a different ask, or we need to continue working on a specific issue because, we might have gotten a yes from an official, but we didn't get follow through. So we need to continue to follow up with them and put pressure on them. And so it starts with those. That's how issues are uncovered. But the people who are involved in those conversations, the people who were a part of the organization, they vote on which issues we focus on.
And for the first step, I know the ministers and preachers are trying to get people in their congregation, but you're calling almost everybody. I know you're going to be making hundreds of calls to the names of people we have been sending to you. So have you started the process, and what has it been like to speak to such a diversity of people?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's also been because I come from a faith background. I grew up Baptist, so it's interesting to learn about different faiths and why people are in those faiths. I always love to hear stories of people who have switched faith backgrounds, to hear those stories of why. Um, but it's also just amazing to see that even though people are so different, like you can always go back to that scriptural basis with people for doing justice. So that similarity that bonds everyone together, I think is always interesting to see. And when people hear it, they're like, "Oh, we do have a requirement to do justice."
And one of the great things about the diversity is that there's an understanding, and that'll be, of course, uh, kind of forwarded on to everybody, that we're picking issues that are not political in nature. So we're not talking gun control or anything of that nature that may have a political spin, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. These are all social justice issues that they may not have been the ones they chose, but everyone agrees with them.
Right.
So it's a way to bring, so when we have these meetings, we see people from a wide range, a wide gamut of houses of worship that may not agree on a lot of issues, but we're bringing them together to agree. And that's something Savannah has not had, at least not while I'm here. Traditionally, I don't know if it has, but I think it's certainly getting better now. So is that pretty interesting to see such a wide range?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And like you said, there's often so many differences, but to see people come together for this is great. And I think that organizations like this they're so countercultural because there's so much in society or news or media that tries to divide everyone on every little thing. Um, but to purposefully say that we're not here to talk about things that are going to divide us, because there's power when we unify. And so we're gonna work on things that don't divide us, and are very strategic about that. And I think that that's important, and that's something that I had never seen before, with an organization that works on these issues.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to see, and we're looking forward to just think about getting 3,000 people together, speaking individually, and I think it's really going to be an exciting process. Everyone here, if you're on watch this YouTube, we're still looking for people to join through our synagogue, whether you're a member or not. We have a big first training, which I think is October 3rd, right?
October 5th.
October 5th on a Monday night. So it'll be after the high holidays, or at least after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur for us. So that's an apropos time, and it will be virtual. So what's difficult, obviously, is a lot of things will be virtual now, but what's positive is that because it's virtual, we have the chance to have so many more people come because you don't have to leave your home. So hopefully that'll be something true. By the way, privately, you just graduated in May, right? So what was it like completing university during this pandemic, which is so different than, the way the rest of us completed it?
Yeah, it was very weird. I think the first month of everything, it was my last semester, so I had I had 2 senior theses due for my double majors, but then I also had my big theses due for the honors college. And so I was stressed out, plus all of my extracurricular activities. And so in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is great. Everything is slowed down, so that I can actually focus on these things. And after that first month, of just being like, oh, this is great, I get to chill out for a second. It just like my motivation decreased. Luckily it went back up, but just like not having human interaction, and then not having all of the normal end of the year things, my honors college ceremony, my graduation ceremony. And with College of Charleston, we don't have like caps and gowns. We wear all white and walk across the cistern, and so I didn't get to do that. And my family had planned to all come into town from different places, and so it was strange not having that. But I think it was also good because I initially would have started this job June 1st, so I wouldn't have had a break between finishing college and starting in this position and moving. But because of everything, I was able to go back home and spend a few months with my family before making the transition. So silver lining in it all. And we were able to celebrate virtually my accomplishments, which was good.
And we'll all be testing how successful these organizations around the country can be when you're doing it virtually and meeting with individuals, meeting with police officers or council people or teachers or school boards or the sheriff's departments. So hopefully it'll go smoothly. But again, everybody's kind of getting used to it. So I think if you're not an expert in Zoom, you've probably been on a desert island for the last 6 months. Exactly. I know many of us had been on it, but not like now where it's almost the same thing as making a phone call. Right. So it's very interesting. And so do you have any questions of us in Savannah, of our congregation, or anything you wanted to know about us? I know there are congregations in Charleston, and one of them obviously was very big into this. So, but I assume you've met with the houses of worship that are different, as you mentioned, between what you're used to. So you've met with Islamic groups, Jewish groups, maybe Sikhs or Hindus as well. Or I don't know what it was like in Charleston. It's a bigger city, but
yeah,
I don't know what it's like there.
Yeah, I met with some. I didn't meet with any Hindu people, and I don't think I met with a mosque during my time in Charleston. But I was able to meet with the Unitarians, also with some mosques that were involved. And we often had these team assemblies where we'd meet with different groups of different faith backgrounds on purpose. And so I was a team leader for the College of Charleston. So it wasn't affiliated with the congregation. It was just, we felt like there needed to be a student voice heard within the issues, because a lot of the congregations were older. And since we were living in downtown, we realized that we were facing a lot of the same issues, such as finding affordable housing and things like that. Um, and so we got to see other churches through those, as well. So that was good. But it's always good to also go to the big, like, dark conferences, because then you also get to see different people of different faith backgrounds. And it's just amazing, because in a lot of, you probably wouldn't have relationships with these people outside of, this work. So you get to meet people that you probably would have never been in conversation with before.
And yeah, I got to go to one in Orlando. I was going to stay an extra day to go to Disney World. I had to come back at the last second, so I didn't get to go, not realizing that Disney World would then close a couple weeks later. And so hopefully I'll get there one of these days. I'm a big Star Wars fan. They have a big Star Wars park. So I know they're doing it now, but I don't think I'm going to go yet.
Right.
A lot of people say you should wait when your children get old enough, but I really don't care if my children want to go or not, because I want to go.
It's about
So
you.
it's about me. My daughter's into the princess thing, so obviously she will. But so that's so you've gone to the ones in Orlando. Have they had other national ones as well? Or are they mostly there?
So I actually had never been to a national training, just because of monetary issues when I was in school, but also just because I worked sometimes on the weekends, and so I was never able to go to the big dark conferences. The first one I actually went to was when everything had shut down, and they had, like, the investment drive training online. So it made it even more convenient for me to attend that. Um, but it was always good to see those. But also, Cajun would sometimes have people from their sister organizations come and share about other wins with us. So they would have people from Columbia come down sometimes and meet with us as well, or help out with big events, which was good to see. You got to see how, even though they're different affiliates, how supportive they are of each other, especially when they're in the same state.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see in Savannah is a lot of people from a lot of different places getting to know each other, coming together. It's going to be not unique, but possibly unique. So for our community to have this kind of togetherness, which is so needed these days. And obviously we don't expect you to change Savannah, on your own in 3 days. So we're going to give you 2 or 3 weeks.
Thanks.
And
I
then
appreciate
by
it.
September 21st, we expect it to be done. Everything safe, everybody getting what they want.
Mhm.
And then, but that's pretty easy. So I think, Flossie, do you have a question before we conclude?
First of all, our son graduated College of Charleston.
No.
Oh, really? And
So I know when you're talking the graduation and what they wear. So I guess you have to think it since you weren't, but it's nice to see someone young and so enthusiastic, and we believe in your cause and we wish you lots of luck.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll wait and think, Flossie, were you talking to her or me?
Oh yeah, because I'm a little older.
All right, sorry, just want to get that straight.
Well,
Jeff,
the enthusiasm is on both of you.
okay, thanks. Jeff, please.
Anyway, congratulations and thank you for talking to us. I can see you have a big challenge ahead. Now, one of the things with a nonprofit, especially during these challenging times, are you also responsible for the fundraising, or how do you finance this project?
Yes.
Question.
Yeah. So before I came, there was 1.5 years of groundwork laid. And like I said, we really wanted to be owned by the people. So we start out with some grants that we get as a nonprofit, but the goal is to make this organization something that's completely owned by the people. So the congregations that are involved pay dues yearly, and once we enter into this first cycle, like I said, we have listening, then research to action, then the investment drive. And so all of the people who have been a part of the process up to that point, we ask them to make an investment, but also work on fundraising from the community. So they get it from people that they know, other people within the congregations, So we set goals within congregations for how much we want to raise, what our goal is for the year, with the idea to wean ourselves off of getting assistance from grants, but also we do a corporate investment drive. But we have maxes that we allow for corporations to invest, because we don't want them to feel like they own us or own the work or can push us in a certain way.
And so, yeah, and a lot of the congregations, so I think it's the 25 congregations you mentioned, I believe, and quote me if I'm wrong, those are the 25 who've already put in their budget each year. So there's at least 15 to 20 others that are already thinking about it or had, we have put it into our budget. It's part of our budget. It's under our social action. So it is part of those, it was voted on by the board last year to put this. And so we are part of it. So we're excited. Again, if anybody, some of the people who come on here will be listening to YouTube are in South Carolina, and some are in Savannah, because of course we're out on the border. So if anybody's interested in participating, please let me know. So we're gonna conclude here and say thank you one more time to Asia. As she goes around, she is going to be meeting a lot of people. Hopefully she'll meet some of you, and hopefully you'll be interested in joining us. Again, if you're interested in participating, no matter which house of worship you're in, if you're at AA, for instance, the Conservative Synagogue, they're part of it. If you're at a church, we have a lot of churches, obviously, that's the bulk. So really trying to get as many, and if you're not affiliated, and still, I just met with somebody the other day who's not Jewish, but a friend of mine, and he wants to be part of it. So he's going to do it through our congregation. So I think it's really great. And the first training will be on October 5th. And Arlene, did you have a question, or were you waving goodbye?
No, I have a question. Is the JEA involved in it in any way?
That is a good question. I don't remember. They need to be. And I'm pretty much, I try and be fair. I think pretty much that was Stephen Hankins' job to see if they were on board. Obviously, he failed miserably, if we don't know. So I'll give Adam a call and see if he's interested.
Okay.
And Stephen Hankin is the Rabbi Asia at the Conservative Synagogue. I think you've met with him. Adam Solander is the director of the Jewish Community Center and the Jewish Federation and Jewish Family Services. We're small, so we don't have individual ones, but we're big enough to have it all together, which is kind of nice. So thank you so much again. Good question, Arlene. I'm actually going to call Adam right now to double check if they're on board or not.
Thank you.
And are you on the allocations committee, by the way?
Oh, I'm always involved.
Okay, yeah, just putting it out there, Asia, just in case you're wondering. She's a past president, and her husband is very involved. I think he's a past president, and so the allocations committee decides where all the money goes from the community in Savannah. So just putting that out there. So
Okay.
Thank you very much, Asia. It is a pleasure. We have actually a meeting now, so I get to talk with her a little bit more on this link. But again, we're going to pause from the interviews for 2 or 3 weeks, just because we're getting a little behind on high holidays, and just to make sure that all gets done. And we'll probably start up again in October, and then continually go until this is all over. We will continually have our Wednesday study sessions. We know we have a ton of people who come to that. Flossie.
May I suggest you interview my rabbi, Rabbi Haas?
I will be happy to interview myself.
Interesting. Okay.
Thank
If
you. By the way, I just
busy, maybe he'll talk to you.
thanks. Yeah, he is a pretty busy guy. I tried to get him for my wedding, and he is just too expensive. I mean, really, just we didn't want to do it. I was surprising. I thought I had an in, but I didn't. So again, thank you, Asia, so much. And again, thank you for joining everybody. And again, we look forward to seeing you. Apologize. It was kind of a last second thing to cancel the next couple of weeks, but we just want to make sure we get all this done. So stay safe, everyone. And we'll see all of you hopefully tomorrow for our study session on Jewish authors, and then hopefully see you guys in the rest of the week. So stay safe, everyone.
You too, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.